Hi, everybody. Welcome. And so to get us started, I want to introduce our speaker and presenter, Adrian Keller. So welcome. It's so great to have you. I'm going to go back up to my notes really quick. And so he's going to be presenting on the current landscape of rooftop solar in Arizona. And so I know there's been a lot of changes, it seems like recently, not only at the federal level, but a lot of that has trickled down to the local level and throughout the state, which has been impacting a variety of different policies and practices. There's still a lot of interest with regards to solar, particularly when it comes to city application, but then also on a residential basis. I myself am a resident that would like to have solar. And so I'm keenly interested in what Solar United Neighbors has to provide. And so Adrian is going to be providing an update on our recent state and federal policy changes impacting rooftop solar, including new Arizona Corporation Commission policies, new SRP rate plans, and federal IRA defense work. And so, Adrian, it's really nice to meet you. If you could provide folks with kind of a brief introduction to who you are and maybe some of your background to start us off, that would be great. And if folks have questions, let's go ahead and have them put them in the chat and you can address those at the end.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for inviting me in. Really appreciate the opportunity to come back here. So yes, my name is Adrian Keller. I'm the Arizona Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. I live in Phoenix and I've been doing this work in solar for about 3.5 years. Before that, I worked in city government, actually in Oregon, and then later for the city of Phoenix. I really loved that work and honestly kind of miss it. And so it's always a pleasure to be back with a group of city folks as well. And so as Arizona Program Director, I oversee all of our work to both help people go solar, a lot of that implementation work, in addition to the policy and advocacy side of things that we're very heavily engaged on, especially right now. So with that, let's go ahead and grab my presentation and we'll get started. All right. And there's my email if you need it. It'll also be at the end. So if you're unfamiliar, Solar United Neighbors, we are a vendor neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. So we're not a solar installer. We're a nonprofit that helps people install solar and advocates for solar policies. We're based in Washington, D.C. and have field staff in about 15 states now. Our mission is to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. We help lots of people go solar across Arizona, both individually, but also through our bulk purchasing campaigns that we call solar co-ops. We also bring people together. We have happy hours and lobbying days. We do solar one-on-ones, provide a lot of opportunities and resources to help solar enthusiasts effectively advocate for their rights. And when I say energy rights or solar rights, really all that means is making sure that everybody in Arizona who wants to should have the ability to install and benefit from rooftop solar. We're fighting to ensure that solar owners are getting fair credit for the value of their solar, ensuring that HOAs can't restrict people from installing solar, and fighting for policies like community solar that would enable renters to benefit from the solar transition. So there's a lot that we're engaged on at the local, state, and federal level on the policy side of things. So like Ann said, I'm going to give an update on some recent ACC and state level updates as they impact solar. Also give an update, a very fresh update on what's going on with the Inflation Reduction Act. I had to amend my PowerPoint really quickly this morning after last night's congressional actions. I'll also share a little bit about our priorities for this upcoming year and then talk more about our co-ops and opportunities for cities to engage. So we'll start with the Corporation Commission. This is actually a little bit of an update of what I told you all, I think last year when we were kind of going through this process, but there's been some movement on it. So as you may remember, last year, APS was allowed to increase their electricity rates by about 9% for all of their customers. It was a pretty steep increase that we were opposed to, but that's something that impacted all APS customers. What was really frustrating is during that process, the ACC also granted APS permission to start charging what they call a grid access charge to APS solar customers. We call it a solar fee or a solar tax. It's not a huge amount. It's about $2.50 per month per APS solar customer. But the idea behind this, the principle behind this is not sound. There's no reason for this fee to exist. It's discriminatory and some would argue even unconstitutional. So Sun and our partners and other advocates, including the Attorney General's office, vehemently opposed this charge and filed for a rehearing after this decision was made. The frustrating thing with the Corporation Commission is if you file for a rehearing, it goes back to the same Corporation Commission that just made that decision. So to nobody's surprise, the commissioners once again reaffirmed their decision. But what was especially concerning is during that process, they explicitly directed APS to increase that grid access charge during their next rate case, which will happen this year. This is bad as APS has told us that fee could be as high as $65 to $88 per customer per month. I don't think it's dramatic to say that if that fee gets passed and it is that high, it is going to be a nail in the coffin for a lot of solar companies in the state, and significantly fewer people will install solar who are APS customers. We're also worried as this could give kind of permission for TEP and other utilities who may also want to piggyback and try to pass their own grid access charge. The good news is this isn't over. Once the decision was reaffirmed by the Corporation Commission, we were able to file an appeal in state court, so finally able to get this out of that body. The Arizona Court of Appeals has agreed to hear that case, and briefs are coming up very soon. That's obviously going to be a long process, but we're fighting hard to advocate that this fee should not only be removed, but any money collected by APS should be refunded to their solar customers. Also going on at the ACCs, we've got some rate cases coming up for all three of the investor-owned utilities in Arizona. APS will be filing for a rate case on June 13th. This is really frustrating as, like I said, last year, they just got approval for a 9% rate increase, and they're back asking for more. TEP and UNSC are also expected to file sometime later this year. Sun is going to be paying really close attention during these rate cases to ensure that we're advocating for ratepayers and especially solar owners. And like I said, we'll be watching very closely to see what these utilities do with that grid access charge and if they attempt to adjust it or increase it or anything like that. I also like to make sure that people understand how solar customers are compensated for any excess generation that's being fed back out onto the grid. So we have what's called a resource comparison proxy. That's simply just that solar export rate that solar customers get paid for by their utility for any excess generation they're not using. So how this works is if you go solar today, you're locked in at the current RCP rate for the next 10 years. But if you wait to go solar, the utilities will drop that rate by 10% every year. So this September and October, we're expecting to see APS and TEP drop their rates by that 10%. And this is just going to keep happening every year. There hasn't been any appetite by the commission to oppose this or stop this, even though they could. And so we expect these reductions to continue until we get a new corporation commission or until they bottom out at about 3 or 4 cents. I also wanted to mention that we also received some new rates from SRP. It's been a very busy year for rate plans. SRP is not governed by the Corporation Commission. They have their own internal board and council that sets rates. Sun was actually in the process of suing SRP in federal court because they had some very, in our view, discriminatory solar fees that violated federal law. During kind of that lawsuit process, SRP actually did update their rate plans, removed that discriminatory fee for solar customers, and actually slightly bumped up the export rate for solar customers. So this is sort of a good news and bad news situation. It's good news because it's likely these changes would not have happened if it had not been for our lawsuit. I think that really pushed SRP to sort of cover their ass and make sure that these rates weren't violating any federal law. But the bad news is they made these changes just ever so slightly enough that they're not in violation of any law. So our lawsuit is kind of a moot point right now, and there's not really a legal process for us to move forward. And we'll have to just continue working through the SRP board and council to continue advocating for better solar rates. And by the way, most of those new SRP rate plans will kick in this fall. All right, it's not all bad news. Don't worry. There has been some good things happening in Arizona, and most of them have been around battery storage. This is a really fast-growing sector for the industry and in the state, and we're seeing a huge explosion of interest. When I first started at Sun even 3 years ago, it's wild how many fewer people were getting battery storage as compared to now. This has really exploded. And so one of the positive things that's happened is, again, TEP, APS, and SRP are all in the process of launching a virtual power plant program. If you're unfamiliar, a virtual power plant is also called a distributed power plant, and it's a fantastic tool that allows for homeowners with battery storage to share some of that power back to the grid with the utility and receive credit on their bill for sharing that power. The utility is grabbing a little bit of power from thousands of batteries all across the valley or the state, and using that to help bolster the grid during times of peak demand or stress, like think like a really intense heat wave in the late afternoon. This is good because it helps utilities reduce their reliance on fossil fuels, especially gas peaker plants, which are really expensive and inefficient to run. It also finally provides a direct financial incentive for solar customers to install battery storage. And we've taken a very close look at all three of these programs, and we're really excited about them. These are good programs. They're set up well. They're going to compensate customers well. And so we're very excited to help promote these programs to our members and make sure that folks know how to sign up. All right, now that I just gave you a little piece of good news, switching to talk to you what's going on at the federal level. So, as you may have seen in the news, last night there was some action out of the House of Representatives, and the House GOP did unfortunately pass a budget resolution that, I'll be honest, takes a sledgehammer to the IRA. I will say take all this with a little bit of grain of salt. Obviously, the bill still has to go to the Senate, and it's possible they could make changes, but what I'm telling you about is what was in the House bill that was passed last night. It completely repeals the consumer-facing clean energy tax credits for electric vehicles, energy efficiency, and solar. All of those would phase out by the end of 2025. So we may end up seeing a huge rush of people trying to go solar before the end of this calendar year. The Republican bill does keep the commercial tax credits in place until the end of 2028, but it adds some very onerous restrictions that is basically going to make this unworkable. For one, a commercial project would have to start within 6 months of this bill being passed and be wrapped up by the end of 2028. They also included a restriction on components from entities of foreign concern. And so essentially how this is written is if you're using solar panels, even if they were manufactured in the US, if any of those raw materials or components were originally sourced from China, that project is ineligible for any of these tax credits or direct pay, which helps nonprofits get some benefit. And so the way this is written and designed, it basically acts as the commercial tax credits as well, which is extremely unfortunate. We were really hopeful that at least some of those credits would be salvaged. And so now the bill moves to the Senate. The Senate has said they're going to try to pass by the end of June. And so we'll see what happens. I'll be honest, I don't really know what the Senate is going to do. We've already seen a couple statements from Republican senators who don't like the bill because they feel like it doesn't cut enough. We've seen some who said they don't like the bill because it cuts too much. And so it's kind of anybody's guess right now how this will end up in the Senate, but this is where we stand right now. Sun's been very, very involved. This has basically consumed my life these last few months on trying to defend the IRA and doing whatever we can to do so. Nationally, we've organized more than 50 meetings between our members and their constituents to give folks an opportunity to share with their representatives how solar has benefited from them. We also did a fly-in to organize some of our members to actually go to DC and meet with their members directly. In Arizona, we've been very laser focused on Representative Siscomani in Southeast Arizona. He was one of the signers of that letter that actually asked Speaker Johnson not to repeal the IRA tax credits. And so we were hopeful that he would be a movable target, but unfortunately he did vote in favor of this bill last night. Obviously, since our messaging right now has really been focused on Republican members of Congress and Republican voters, we're focusing really heavily on emphasizing the economic benefits of this bill, the energy savings it's bringing to consumers, and the job losses that will result if this bill is repealed. And so obviously we weren't successful in our efforts in the House, but we're going to be continue to pushing our members in the Senate and see if we can get some amendments to this bill. I wanted to include this quote from our executive director because I found it very encouraging. She said, amidst the federal chaos, Sun is well poised to meet this moment, thanks to our deep investment in state-based teams. Solar may be under attack, but it's not going anywhere, and the economics of solar are strongly on our side. The good news is that our organization is not funded by any federal grants, so our jobs are safe. We're not going anywhere. We're going to continue to be doing this work and advocate for solar however we can. It's likely, though, some of our work will transition to focusing a little bit more on state and local policy, depending on what happens with the IRA. But some of our priorities coming up for Sun, of course, defend whatever we can out of the IRA in these next few weeks in the Senate. We're also particularly concerned about the REAP grants. The REAP program helps farmers and small businesses get grants and loans to install solar. That's originally from the Farm Bill, but was expanded under the IRA. And so if the IRA does end up cutting those extensions, we're going to be pivoting hard to advocacy in the Farm Bill to ensure that that REAP program remains intact. We're also really excited about the Solar for All program. Again, things are changing very quickly, but Solar for All, the money has been obligated. The state has the money, so we're not too worried about that program going away. But again, take that with a little bit of an asterisk. Sun was really helpful for the state in helping them design their Solar for All application, and we hope to have some role in playing with implementation of Solar for All, even if that's just educating and getting the word out publicly to our members so they know how to sign up for it. But that's going to be a really big priority for us, and we hope to be able to work with the state in some capacity. On the statewide level of things, we're going to continue to defend the value of solar at the ACC and fight to oppose continued reductions to solar export rates. Additionally, we're going to continue to oppose and fight against new solar fees and taxes that utilities and the ACC are imposing on us. And like I said, we're going to be very focused on those 3 rate cases this year, watching to see what utilities do, what they propose, and if there's any changes to that grid access charge, like I mentioned earlier. We've also been seeing an explosion of action in cities and counties across the US, including here in Arizona, to pass new solar ordinances and in some cases moratoriums. Some of these are really good. They're just cities and counties updating their renewable energy planning and siting policy. Some of these are really bad and aim to completely restrict renewable developments entirely. Most of these ordinances that we're seeing are more geared towards utility scale solar, but some of them do touch on rooftop solar as well. And so we'll be engaging a little bit on that front. And just an open call here, since I'm speaking to cities, if your city or county is looking at passing a solar ordinance and needs help with model language for a good solar ordinance, we've got that for you. If your city and county is considering passing a bad and overly restrictive solar ordinance and need help opposing that, please feel free to reach out and we'd love to help you how we can. So to summarize, I titled this presentation, the current landscape of rooftop solar in Arizona. So it's not great, to be totally honest with you. I will just say, the existing federal policy that we have today, as of this right moment, is amazing. The Inflation Reduction Act was a game changer. We saw an explosion of interest from so many new people and organizations who never would have considered solar without some of these incentives. But obviously, major threats loom, and we're not anticipating that the IRA will remain, of course. Recent statewide policy has also been really damaging to rooftop solar, with utilities passing higher rates for consumers, the Corporation Commission dropping the export rate every single year, and utilities passing new fees and flat fees onto consumers. This is not made for a very good environment for rooftop solar in the state. Interest rates are also still really high, and most consumers, especially residential customers, do finance their solar installation, and that's had taken a huge hit on the residential sector. Tariffs are also a major concern. The industry has made huge strides to diversify their supply chain away from China. And today, a huge portion of panels do come from the US or Canada or Europe. But like I mentioned, a lot of the raw materials, the minerals, the solar cells are often still sourced from China. So even with American manufactured panels, we're still going to get hit hard by the tariffs, whatever they end up being. And then all of this uncertainty around the IRA has really hurt the industry as well. I get about a call every other day now from somebody who says, I want to go solar, but I'm worried about the tax credit. And when I kind of inform them of what we know so far, you can't blame them for saying, I kind of want to wait until this gets figured out for folks who really are counting on that 30%. So all of this, unfortunately, has led to Arizona sliding a little bit. We used to be the state with the 5th most solar capacity in the nation. We've slid down to 7th. And as the sunniest state in the nation, that's really disappointing and really frustrating when we should be going the opposite direction. And I don't say all this to bum you out, and I'm sorry if it does, but I just want to be honest with where we're at. Solar's been having a really tough time in Arizona. Installations are declining, and I've talked to several installers who are leaving the state to just work in Nevada. A couple have folded entirely. And so I know y'all are busy, but just another open call. If your city does engage at all at the ACC, if you do any lobbying or political advocacy and want to help us with this, we need all the help we can get because it's getting tougher and tougher for folks to go solar in Arizona. All right, I'm finished out my presentation here talking a little bit more about our co-ops. So if you're unfamiliar with how this works, basically how I like to explain it is imagine you and 50 of your neighbors who all want to go solar, knock on a solar company's door and say, hey, all of us want to install solar panels. What kind of deal can you give us? That's essentially what we're organizing with a solar co-op. So Sun, as a nonprofit, works with community partners and cities to help organize the group and recruit homeowners to join it. We provide free education via Solar 101s and even do a free roof review to check people out for solar viability. And then once we've reached critical mass, we'll issue an RFP to installers who bid discounted pricing in order to win the whole group's contract. So this process helps, as a way to help bring down the cost of solar a little bit. It also takes a lot of that stress and guesswork out of the process since Sun is handling most of that bidding process as well. And we're there to back people up throughout the entire process, even after installation if they're having any issues. We've done 18 of these campaigns now since 2019. They've gone really well. This has become a pretty well-oiled machine at this point, and we see a lot of positive success from it. And people tend to really like this approach to going solar. They get to do it with their community instead of on their own, and they know that they're getting a really good deal on the price. This year, we'll be launching a Northern Arizona co-op in July. That'll be open to Flagstaff, Sedona, and surrounding areas of Coconino County. We're also working with the Community Foundation for Southern Arizona to do a program for nonprofits specifically in Pima County this summer. And then in September, we'll be launching our residential solar co-op in Tucson. Like I mentioned, I hope that we have some role to play in Solar for All implementation, even if that's just public education about how great the program is and how to sign it up. So we bookmarked a little bit of my time there for that as well. And then next year, we'll also be doing another co-op in Tucson in Northern Arizona, and we'll be launching our Phoenix Metro co-op sometime in the spring. That one is one where we're always looking for new partners. We love partnering with cities for these co-ops because it really helps residents feel trustworthy about the program and that we're not just some for-profit company trying to sell a system, but that we're a real nonprofit trying to help people. And so if you're interested, if you're in Maricopa County and would like to work with us on a co-op, we'd love to talk to you more about that. There's no financial expectation in a partnership. We just love to work with cities to help promote the group. I also just want to say, like Sun, I really think of us as a nonprofit that is a resource. We are an educational powerhouse. That's a huge part of what we do. And so I really hope that you'll consider Sun as a resource to you and your residents if you need any help with solar in any degree. If you have questions about what's going on at the ACC or some weird wonky utility policy, feel free to reach out. I may be able to help you with that. If you have a community event and want somebody to attend it, set up a table, or even host a solar one-on-one in your community, we'd love to work with you on that. Also, if your residents are if your residents are asking you questions about going solar, or maybe they've already gone solar but they're having issues with it, we have a free help desk where anybody in the US can call in or email and talk to one of our solar experts and get help with their issues. So please consider us a resource if there's anything we can do to help you all. Like I said, I come from a city background. I love working with cities, and in Arizona, we're blessed to have some of the best. There's two email addresses down there. One's my personal, one is Bester for like more members of the public. I'd be happy to drop those in the chat too. Oh, and that was my last slide. I was surprised myself. My phone number is there too. Feel free to text or email or call if there's anything I can do to help you all. But yeah, just thank you so much again for having me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.